Hi, I'm Rebecca Mander, and you are listening to the Bounce Mindset podcast. During my time as a busy mum and managing director in 2007, I managed significant personal loss and professional challenges as the only woman on the board. I believe we always have a choice, and that a resilient and what I call a bounce mindset is possible for anyone to develop. Join me as we meet some incredible guests, sharing their bounce forward stories, including my own in episode 1. I'm so excited to have you here, and also would like to thank Grow Radio Production and Stephen Bedell for Dragonfly, my very own theme tune. Enjoy. Hi there, everybody. I first met my next guest in 2020 when Julie was executive assistant to a wonderful CEO who would often tell me how fabulous she was and how wonderful she was at what she did. And I would watch Julie cringe, her toes literally curl and brush off the compliments. So it was no surprise when I was asked to support her in coaching in matters of confidence and imposter phenomenon. Julie was the ideal coachee. She was open to anything that would help free her from the constant self-doubt and fear that she felt. And I'm so excited that so early on in my podcast journey, she's agreed to come on our podcast and share her bounce moment with us all and how she escaped from the jaws of the imposter monster. So Julie, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm very good, thank you. I'm very excited.
I know. And was that introduction correct, do you think? Did I get that right?
Oh, absolutely spot on. Yes. I think that's that time now, and I think, oh, yeah, almost exactly like that.
Yeah, that fear. It was gripping, wasn't it? It was gripping.
Yes.
So we'd love to know, when we begin a coaching journey, we quite often say, so tell me your story. So we'd love to know your story. We know you're company secretary now, but how did your career begin, Julie? Tell us.
Okay, so many moons ago, because I was sweet 16 when I left school and went on to a YTS scheme, which is similar to an apprenticeship now. And I joined, I was really fortunate that I was placed with Pricewaterhouse, which is PwC now. And I started there on a YTS and I worked my way up from manager secretary to partner secretary. And at the time, I was the youngest partner secretary that I'd had. And so I stayed there for 11 years. And then I thought it was time to spread my wings and just try somewhere else. And I thought I'd go into a different industry, but actually ended up at Ernst & Young. So I just followed the Big Four accountancy route. And I stayed there for 7 years and worked for the head of corporate finance. Wow. And that's how I started my career.
Wow. And was it what you hoped it would be in the early years, as you know?
It was. Oh, it was everything and more. Honestly, I'd watched a family member with a typewriter, and I'm going back, proper typewriter, no electronic thing. And I watched her on it, and I used to think, oh my God, I want to be a secretary. I really want to be a secretary. And I did, and I just followed my dream. And
brilliant. And do you think that that's the same for many administrative and PAs, business services people? Do you think that's a common way in?
No, I think it's totally different these days. I mean, to be honest, I think in schools nowadays, you don't have anything in the business support functions that encourages people at school to follow this as a path, as a career path, which I think is such a shame. And I think it needs to be brought in. I knew that's what I wanted to do, but a lot of people fall into it.
And why do you think, when I've been judging on the PA forum panel and speaking, you hear these most incredible stories, and a lot of the administrative teams and people say, I was told by my parents to go to become a secretary, or a teacher said, just go into secretarial work. Is that, do you think that's the main route for people?
Yeah, I do. And I think particularly I think it was the type of, I think you were either, very academic and you went off and you went to university, or you did something down the accountancy route or medicine or whatever, or you did cooking or you did secretary. It was, there weren't many paths to go down in those days. And I think a lot of people sort of similar age to me just happened to go down that path, particularly if you weren't what I would call very academic. And I think, and we'll probably touch on it, I would imagine, in a bit, as to why those roles were like they were back in the day.
Yeah. So tell me, let's talk about it now. Okay. Why do you think those roles were like that in the day?
Well, I think if you look along quite a while ago, if you look at what people would term a secretary, a business support staff, in most businesses back then, they were very hierarchical, and you were just seen as the bottom rung of the ladder. You were just there as a support function, and you would never be expected to have career aspirations that got you up that ladder. You were just on that bottom tier and you never moved. And that's how it was seen. And what's wonderful nowadays is that actually you do see career EAs and PAs that move within the business and are now classed as part of the business as business partners and on senior management teams, and you are classed as part of a board, and your voice is there to be heard, and you are supporting that business support function. And the thing is that people now realise that didn't back in the day. Without that business support function, most businesses couldn't even run their businesses.
Yeah, it's so true.
It's such a pivotal role.
It is.
And all the people who they deem as at the top, making the money, sales and all of that, they couldn't do any of it without all the other people supporting them.
No.
But I think that is now seen more.
Yes.
And that's why you do find nowadays a lot of business support professionals are being able to climb that career ladder.
Yes. And nowadays, more appropriately reimbursed for doing that as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. And getting your voice out there. I always say you could lose 10 partners in a law firm and it would be a nightmare, but everyone would crack on, other people would be able to take up the slack. But if you lost 10 PAs, the firm would come to a standstill. It's true, isn't it?
It's very true. Yes. I don't think people realise what you do until you're not there.
Exactly.
Even when you go on holiday, for 2 weeks and you come back and everybody's like, oh, thank God you're back.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. So you say it was what you hoped for in the early years, and were you able to climb that ladder that you talked about as quickly as you wanted to?
I was fortunate and I did climb it quite quickly. But the adverse effect of that for me was that because I've been brought up in an environment where you didn't speak unless you were spoken to, you weren't allowed to have your own opinion. It was very much, I was in this, so I'd climbed where I thought I needed to get to. So I'd got to the partner secretary level, which was brilliant. But then I was my own blocker because I would be in a meeting and I'd be asked my opinion, my peers, my bosses, everybody treated me like all the other senior management team. And I just had this block, and it was almost reverting back to my childhood where I'm not allowed to say what my opinion is, or I was too scared to say what my opinion was because of the fear of being laughed at or saying the wrong thing, or because I didn't feel very academic. I thought, I'm in a room full of people who are really bright and I'm not. And I just felt as if I would look silly. So, yes, I was fortunate to climb the ladder. But then I got to that bit of the ladder and thought, oh, God, I can't do this.
I'm too high. I'm too high up the ladder. Yeah. And we do know that imposter phenomenon is exacerbated the higher we go, because we look around us and we see that, oh, gosh, everybody's not like I am, or there's not many people that look or sound like me. And
Yeah.
so that imposter phenomenon creeps up on us. So
Yes.
the opportunities came to you, Ernst & Young and PwC, and you were able to follow the partners as they grew, I guess,
Yes.
which is quite common in
Yeah.
your industry, isn't it? But we touched on your upbringing, being seen and not heard. I was told the same. Look how that worked out for both of us. I mean, we like being we both like to be in the limelight, don't we? None of us, neither of us shrink away from the limelight in a family party. But growing up, that was, I think, for you as well as for me, a real don't show off. I was told, Rebecca, don't show off. My brother would just go COA, which meant centre of attention, and I immediately go back in my box. He'd say, no, you didn't. You carried on regardless. But tell us a little bit about your upbringing. Tell us about your childhood, Julie.
So I had a really happy childhood. I'm a twin. I've got a twin brother, and I've got a sister who's 3 years older. And so I had a happy childhood because I'd got a twin brother and he was a lad. He was, he could speak and be heard. My sister was 3 years older, so she was the oldest child. And I felt as though I was the one that just might as well fade into the background. Nobody, I felt as if I wasn't listened to. As I said before, if you didn't agree with my dad in particular, don't bother having an opinion at all. And I think you sort of learn to just almost become quite mute. And I was quite a shy child. I was really shy and quite introverted. And I just thought, it's just easier not to speak. So I just didn't really voice an opinion. And of course, the problem with that is as you get into adulthood, you carry that with you. And that, I think, was massively what held me back.
And can you remember any times where you did try and put your opinion forward?
I was once at the dinner table and I put my opinion forward, and my dad categorically did not agree with it, and he shot me down, and he was quite strict, and I was quite scared of him in a way, and I just thought, I can't speak. I'm not, and after that, I just didn't bother to do it because I knew I'd get shot down again. And I think that's where you do almost become, well, I'm not allowed an opinion, so I just won't have one.
And what was your mum like in those sort of circumstances? What was her?
Well, Mum was
approach?
very keep the peace. I had a fabulous relationship with my mother, fabulous, but she was always the one who tried to keep the peace and would almost side with Dad.
Yeah.
Which was a shame, really.
But you learned also to keep the peace and just literally keep the peace by not saying anything.
Yeah. I learned to hold my tongue very well.
Yeah. So then when you climbed the ladder, you got to the top. And do you think that it was just that stopped you getting what you wanted or feeling like you belonged at the top of the ladder? Or was there something else?
I think that was the main crux of it, was just my upbringing and the way that, and as I said before, I think I always felt as if I was in a room full of people who deserved to be in the room, and that I had almost fluked getting in the room, and that they were all much more academically bright than me. And that actually was one of the biggest holdbacks, that I thought, if I'm going to get asked my opinion and people are going around the room and speaking, if I say anything, that whole room is going to look at me as if to say, what have you just said? Why have you said that? Or even laugh at me, which was even more fearful than anything else.
Yes, that they would laugh.
Yeah.
And is this, at this time, had you moved on to the role that you're in now?
Yes.
So you had moved in, and that's what you're saying is at the top of the ladder,
Yes.
EA, the CEO of a technological recruitment company. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so what did you do to get out of your own way? When was your bounce moment? We talk about in these podcasts, what was your bounce moment? The moment where you almost went down like a ball would do, but then came shot back up again. What do you think that would be for you if you could tell anybody about that?
I think I had a few occasions in board meetings or senior management team meetings where I would literally freeze on the spot. And I would know if there was going to be a question being asked around the room. I would almost have a bout of anxiety because I knew it would come round to me. And I would just have a complete and utter blank because I was that fearful of saying something that would be laughed at, or I suppose going back to my childhood, feeling as though I'd be shot down, that it just stopped me speaking completely. And then when you came into Jumar to do some senior management team coaching, and I was really fortunate to be on those coaching sessions, that was the start of my journey. And we did the first sessions as an SMT. And then Wendy put forward a certain amount of individuals to just have individual one-to-one coaching with you. And I was really lucky that she chose me to be one of them. She could clearly see that I needed it. And we did 3 one-to-one sessions. And, you know, I have to say, I can't believe we only did 3 for me to get from where I started to where I finished. And you did some fabulous exercises with me, and you did the PAL log, the positive attitude. You did a really good exercise where I had to think about a time in the past where I felt confident and used that as my trigger when I was in a meeting. One of the best pieces of advice you gave me was to think in the here and now and to stop thinking in the past. And I had to take myself out of that childhood time and move myself into today. And that was one of the biggest things. You set me a task where I had to be either the first or second person to speak in a meeting. That also helped me massively. And what you also taught me was it's okay to say, I don't have the answer to that. I'll come back to you. Instead of feeling like I had to know what to say there and then. And I've taken that through into where I am today. But the last piece of advice you gave me was you did a really good, brilliant exercise with me, and it was the visualisation. And that actually was my turning point when you did the visualisation, because I actually used that in my next exercise, which is what took me from not being able to speak in a room to actually getting up and presenting an award.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic. That's just, so you had that toolkit, your coaching gave you that toolkit, but then the reason it was so quick, those 3 sessions, I think, was because you ran with it. You wanted, the worst type of coaching happens when the coachee doesn't want to change. The best kind of coaching happens when the coachee is really ready for change. And I think that's why it was so quick for you. And that shows, that's testament to your attitude and your determination not to be, you know, in this state of paralysis almost at the top of the ladder. And even though your CEO was encouraging you to speak and other members of the SMT were also encouraging you to speak, there was still that fear, wasn't there?
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell us what the visualization exercise was for those people listening. What was that?
You know,
I can't remember either.
Well, it was the most bizarre thing because it was almost like you knew what was going to happen to me. So you did this visualization where you said to me, right, visualize yourself in an environment where you would like to feel comfortable to be. So I said at the PA Forum Awards do. And you said, okay, so now visualize yourself actually being asked to get up and speak or to give an award out. So we did that, and I got on the stage and you said, and how do you feel? And I said, everybody's looking at me. And you said, and how does it make you feel? And I said, it makes me feel great. Everybody's looking at me, but in a really good way. And then I gave the award out and you said, and now how do you feel? And I said, I feel amazing, because everybody's clapping and everybody said I did a really good job. And I go and sit back down and it was wonderful. Lo and behold, a few weeks later, I was asked, a drop of a hat last minute, day before the award, somebody had dropped out who was presenting. And Dan was going, I said to me, oh, I know you're probably not going to want to do this completely out of your comfort zone. Would you present an award? And without hesitation, I said, absolutely, I will do it, because I knew that if I hesitated, I would have said, I can't do that. So I put the phone down. I got that visualisation exercise out, listened to it so many times over and over again. And I had to picture myself in that environment doing that, because that's exactly what I was going to be doing the next night. So when I got to the hotel the next day, and then when I got there and I had to get up and do the presentation, do you know, I really enjoyed it. And I just thought, oh, I've done it, I've cracked it, I've actually got up and done it. But honestly, without all of that you did for me, I would never have been able to get up on the stage and do it. I know I wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, did with you. Definitely did with you. We did it together. It was a team effort, but you really, that's so interesting. And the reason I asked you to share that was so that other people listening can also practice their, you know, what would be their moment? What would they like to be able to embrace? I remember talking to a pupil in primary school, and she was really shy, and I didn't want to help coach her to speak at an assembly if that was really just something she didn't want to do. And you know, so I said, what, when you're looking at the people delivering assemblies, do you think, oh, I'd love to be like that, or do you think, well, better them than me, I certainly don't want to be up there? And she said the former. She said it would be, I'd love to be up there. And so then, you know, that's something to work to begin working on. So I think for anyone listening, to just think about what it is they'd like to, what would good look like, and then start visualizing the best case scenario. Because when you were up there on stage, your brain wasn't surprised. It wasn't shocked. You couldn't have stage fright, because there's nothing to be frightened about, because you've done it so many times. You'd been there, down to the perfume you're wearing, the dress you're wearing. You'd done it. So your brain wasn't shocked. It was thinking, oh yeah, we've done this. Okay, we just do this next. And you know, the Michael Phelps, someone asked him, how did you complete that race? How did you win gold when your goggles were full of water? And he said, well, I'd done it a million times. And he had visualized it. So visualization, you would say, was really important for you. And then, you know, you mentioned, and I get this a lot from my clients, they'll say, what if I look stupid? What if I say the wrong thing? And I remember you saying to me, I might say something, and then they'll ask me a question and I don't have the answer. Have you, in the time since, come across that? So, you know, since you have been a bit braver in your meetings, have you ever come across the time where you don't have the answer? What do you, how do you deal with that? Tell us about that.
And now I'll just say, I don't have the answer to that right now, but after the meeting, I'll go away and I'll find out and I'll come back to you. And it's okay to say that. And actually, since you taught me that, I've been in meetings where loads of people say it. I think, well, there you go. And so all the people that I've always thought are brighter than me, more academic than me, that are going to know the answers, actually don't know the answers, the same as I didn't know the answers. And it's okay to say you don't have that information right now, and that you can go and find it at another time. It's okay to do that. Whereas I've always thought you've got to have the answer there and then, and it's got to be right. And it doesn't.
No, that's fascinating. So your brain started noticing, actually, the times when other people didn't have the answer, whereas before you were only noticing the times when your brain didn't have the answer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. And so this switch in mindset, Julie, what doors did that open up for you?
Well, as I say, doing the PA Forum event was the first. And since then, I've given a number of awards out. I've been asked to get up and actually speak about my journey from going on through the PA Forum and winning one of the awards, so that other people who were going in for it know what it's like. And what was brilliant was I could talk about it from both sides of the fence, because I've been through it, but also was then on the committee. So I've actually stood up and talked about that. And then the icing on the cake, I think, had to be when you and I went to the PA Forum Learning and Development Conference, and sitting on that stage in front of 200 people, all my peers, and to get so many comments after that said, I absolutely resonated with your journey and what you've been through. I totally understand it. And it's so good to hear somebody else, you know, and you think, God, if you can only help one person, you know, it's all been worth it. And that, I think, was the icing on the cake.
Oh, brilliant. That's fantastic. And you also got a promotion as well. Do you think, you know, so tell us a little bit about that and how you received that news.
Yeah, so beginning of this year, we were taking over a private equity company last year. And so in January this year, I took on the company secretary role, which, you know, I think 12 months previous, 18 months previous, I probably wouldn't have gone for it. I'd have probably said, oh, absolutely not, that I'm not good enough to do that. But when it came up, I grabbed it with both hands. I just thought, this is amazing. I've got a fantastic opportunity here. You know, so I do that in conjunction with my EA role. And we've now got a new group CEO as well. So as well as still working for Wendy, I work for John, our group CEO as well. So my role has just expanded. But in a really, really good way. And I've now got so much variety. No 2 days are the same, but I love it. I completely embraced it and I love it.
Oh, fantastic. And so what do you think you would say to your younger self if you were going back to your younger self? What advice would you give yourself?
First piece of advice, stop thinking in the past. Think in the here and now. Don't be scared to take that leap of faith, because, you know, if you don't take that step, you'll never know whether you can do it. And there's nothing wrong with failing either, because you can only grow when you've gone through those stages and those steps, you know. But above all else is believe in yourself, because you can have outside influences, but above all else, it's got to come from you. You've got to want it, and only you can make that change.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's got to come from you. That's lovely. I love that. I love that, Julie. And so what are your future plans? Where are you hoping this will take you?
Well, Rebecca, you know me, I only live in the here and now and for today. So I don't think too far into the future. So, do you know, I have not got any plans for the future. I love where I am today and I love what I do today. And if that opens up other doors and avenues as I'm going along, brilliant. But I'll cross those bridges when I come to them.
Oh, fantastic. I love that. I've just thought of a question that's just come to me. And we haven't mentioned your lovely husband, Simon, but I know that he's a big part of your life. And he was, I think, probably instrumental in helping you find your confidence at a younger age, do you think?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when I first had the one-to-one coaching with you and I told him why I was having the coaching, he said, you're not like that at home. You're really outspoken. You're very vocal. You say exactly what you think. He said, what do you mean? You had no idea that's how I felt in my work environment.
Right.
Because I'm not like that at home, but that's because he encourages me to be confident and to be, and I think, you know, I've been with him for 32 years, a huge part of my life. And he is the person that is super confident. He talks to everybody and anybody.
Yeah.
And fortunately for me, that sort of has rubbed off on me as well. And it's allowed me to, he has allowed me to be me. And I'll be forever grateful to him for it.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose, you know, also being a man who would listen. And like your dad, perhaps Simon would take time to listen and be interested in your point of view.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, we've got 2 teenage children.
Mm-hmm.
I've always taught both of them have a voice and have an opinion. And it's okay to have a different opinion to us or
Yes.
to somebody else. That's
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
And that's
absolutely.
what we've always taught them.
And what do you think? What advice would you give someone who hasn't got that support, who may have grown up in a household that, be seen and not heard, but then didn't go on to have a relationship like Julie and Simon had?
Yeah.
What advice would you give them? You talked about self-belief, believe in yourself. That's easier to do when you've got someone around you who believes in you. What do you think people can do if they don't have that network of people around them that are championing, being their cheerleader?
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, I was really fortunate that you came into our working life and that, I had that ability to be able to bounce forward.
Mm,
And because you do need that,
mm,
and even though I knew that I was being held back and I was holding myself back, because once I started to have those sessions with you, it was really apparent that I was holding myself back, nobody else, but you allowed me to open myself up to looking at the exercises I could do to help me. And I think if you haven't got that support, I mean, I had that support network at home, but I still
mm-hmm.
needed an external
Yes,
help and coach
yes,
to help me
yes,
open those doors and windows and everything else that needed opening inside of me to allow me to take all of that in and be me. It is in
yes,
there. You've just got to open it
yes.
up and find it. I wouldn't believe now if somebody said to me, "You only had 3 sessions," I'd go, "You need more than 3 sessions." I didn't need more than 3 sessions.
Yeah, you
And
did.
you,
You did roll with it.
I mean, you are so easy to talk to and get on with.
People are going to think that you're being
Uh,
paid to be on this podcast,
I
Julie.
can guarantee I'm not being paid.
I wasn't expecting all of this. Lovely. This is so lovely.
But
But
it's true, and
oh, thank you.
honestly, and I'll only ever speak from the heart and I'll say what really
Yeah,
happened. And
yeah,
that is what happened for me.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
I think if other people can see that and if they are struggling, there is help out there. But
That's right. And I think an unbiased, I think you
yeah,
mentioned non-judgmental. I think a good coach is non-judgmental.
yeah,
And mentors also, and mentors for anyone listening who needs that support, mentors are out there, aren't they?
yeah, I've done
Just
it myself. I've done
yes.
mentoring for other PAs and EAs, and it's brilliant to be able to give back to the community, where I started and you didn't have mentoring back in those days, and there are mentors out there.
And they don't have to be formal, do they? They
No,
could be someone you admire and you think, actually, I'd love a coffee.
yeah,
Can I buy you coffee for half an hour of your time?
yeah,
Um, that can be, and having that unbiased attitude, that unbiased listening from a coach, which, there might be some coaches aren't cheap, but a mentor normally is free of charge, and they're
yes,
doing it because they want to help somebody else up that ladder you were talking about
yeah,
earlier.
absolutely. Yeah, and the EAPA role can sometimes be quite low if you are in an environment where there's only you. If you're in a bigger corporation, you've probably got quite a few and a network of PAs and EAs. But in some organisations, you're the only one.
Yeah.
And you're privy to a lot of information, a lot of confidential information. So it can be quite lonely as well. So
Yes,
to
yes.
have mentoring with other PAs and EAs, you bounce ideas off each other and you realise actually you're not on your own.
Yes, yes. And if someone wants to get in touch with the PA Forum, I know you do a lot of work there, Julie.
Yes.
How would they do that?
Well, Daniel Skirmer runs it, who is amazing. And I mean, he's got quite a few communities within that and committees, a huge network of people, and everybody is welcome.
Yes.
It's such a fantastic community. And that has been a huge part of my journey as well.
Yeah, fantastic. I was at the awards the other day and it was amazing. So thank you so much, Julie. And so if you could give some advice to someone else out there who is thinking, oh, I'm not so sure I can do it. I want to be further ahead in my career, but I'm not so sure I can do it. What advice would you give them?
you can do it. Everybody can do it. You know, sometimes you just have to dig deep and think to yourself, if I want something, I have got to go out and get it, because somebody else isn't just going to hand it to you on a plate. If you want it and you want it badly enough, and you don't know whether you are good enough, well, you are good enough, but you've got to go for it and take that leap of faith, because actually, until you don't know, and you could take the leap of faith or not take the leap of faith and think, oh my God, I never did it. I should have done that. You got to do it, honestly. And I can say that because I'm old in the tooth now, so I can say that, and I've been there and done it. But honestly, please don't hold yourself back.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Julie. It's just been so lovely having you on. As I said, you're one of the first guests on the podcast, and that is because I was thinking about amazing people who in their career have had that bounce moment in their career where they could have stopped themselves, and their mindset could have got in the way of them having a brilliant career. And your mindset, that shift really did empower you. You empowered yourself to get there. So it's been wonderful hearing your story. Thank you so much,
thank
Julie.
you, Rebecca. It's been a privilege to be on your podcast, my first one.
And we'll share the link to the PA forum and other links, and we'll be also sharing a link on how to get your free confidence kit at the end of this podcast, and we'll look forward to having you in our tribe. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Bounce Mindset podcast. If you would like a coach in your pocket with free regular hints and tips to help you bounce forward in your career or personal life, then please feel free to go to the Bounce Mindset podcast show notes. And don't forget to leave a review for us. Thank you. Bye.